Giancarlo Esposito is one of the greatest TV actors working today, who can be found in several of the biggest series of the 21st century, and he recently revealed that he met with Marvel about playing Professor X. The actor would make a great Charles Xavier, and it'd be a refreshing change of pace considering he usually plays villains. Esposito is best known for playing Gustavo Fring in Breaking Bad and the spin-off Better Call Saul, and a lot of the characters in that universe actually have surprising resemblances to X-Men characters. Between comic relief characters making fun of a criminal underworld, immature teenagers looking for guidance, and bald geniuses who can manipulate anyone around them, Breaking Bad and X-Men are one and the same. Saul Goodman, Deadpool Saul has yet to break the fourth wall, but outside of that, the criminal lawyer and the foul-mouthed merc are one and the same. Saul is the funniest Breaking Bad character bar none. The Albuquerque criminal underbelly is all just fun and games to him, and it's something that he can take advantage of for financial gain, which is exactly what Wade Wilson always thought to himself. Not only that, but Saul and Wade are two larger-than-life comedic characters in a much more serious world. The only major difference between the two is that Saul would never be so cavalier about taking someone's life. And that was even touched upon in Waterworks, an episode of Better Call Saul, showing that he doesn't have what it takes to kill somebody, even when he's much stronger. Skyler, Jean Grey. Though she always means well, Breaking Bad fans don't like Skyler, but it's only natural for audiences to hate a character who tries to stop the protagonist from doing what they want to see. Skyler is actually one of the most well-written characters in the show, and she has one of the best moral compasses in the series, just as Jean Grey does in the X-Men franchise. However, just like Jean Grey, Skyler eventually gets lured over to the dark side. Everyone has their vices, and both Jean and Skyler broke bad eventually. One person's mysterious cosmic force is another person's pile of cash in a storage unit. Todd Alquist, Toad. There's something about the name Todd in TV, as any character called Todd tends to be despicable, and that's no different in Breaking Bad. Todd is a complete psychopath, as he doesn't display a single emotion in Breaking Bad, and he's confused by anybody who does. The character isn't all that smart, but he is proficient enough when it comes to combat and follows orders well. Toad shares all of those characteristics, as, in the original movie, he's nothing more than an expendable henchman who lasts longer than audiences expect. The character doesn't have any kind of arc, but he seems to enjoy the violence, and following Magneto's orders is all he's good for. But above all else, both Todd and Toad are their franchise's sleazeballs. Jesse Pinkman, Quicksilver Peter Maximoff, doesn't have a father figure in his life, and because of that, he's fairly lost in the world, immature, and mostly left to his own devices. That's almost exactly the way Jesse is when audiences first meet him in the first episode of Breaking Bad. Though he matures in the final season of the show, he rarely makes a single decision on his own and continues to revert back to that immature behavior throughout the first 4 seasons. Jesse is always looking for a father figure in his life, hence his attachment to Walter, Mike, and even Gus at certain times. And even outside of the emotional connection, he's fairly immature and needs guidance in his life, just like Peter. But just like Peter, Jesse was actually pretty smart at times and he rarely gets credit for it. Gustavo Fring, Apocalypse. Giancarlo Esposito is up for the role of Professor X in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is actually refreshing given that the actor has been typecast as a villain ever since Breaking Bad. Since the show ended, Esposito has played a villain in both The Mandalorian and The Boys, but that's just because he's so imposing as drug lord Gustavo Fring. And while it'd be great to see the actor play Professor X, Fring's counterpart isn't just Magneto, but the most powerful X-Men villain of all, Apocalypse. Apocalypse convinces the Four Horsemen to work under him, and Fring is just as convincing and meticulous with anything he does. The two villains know exactly what they want and they know exactly how to get it. And Fring even has an almost supervillain-like death in the appropriately titled episode Face Off. Walter White Professor X. There's absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that Walter is a despicable human being. Between watching Jane die when he could have simply turned her on her side and watching the whole of Albuquerque crumble under his empire, Walter didn't just break bad but he turned evil. However, while Professor X is anything but, the two characters share a lot of the same characteristics, such as leadership skills and intelligence. And whether it's through finding people's weak spots or literally getting into their heads, they both manipulate the people around them at any chance they get. But deep down, Walter does care about those around him, and he was somewhat redeemed by the end of the series. Mike Ehrmantraut, Colossus. Once again, Mike isn't a great guy, as he's on the payroll of both a criminal lawyer and a sadistic drug lord, but in the world of Breaking Bad, he's as heroic and level-headed as they come. The hitman and fixer always thinks logically, avoids fatalities where he can, and is full of wisdom, just like Colossus. The giant metal hero always provides guidance and approaches situations with an unbiased opinion. And, hilariously, what makes Mike and Colossus so similar is that no matter how smart their advice is, they're both constantly ignored by the protagonists, which always leads to a bigger mess, just as they expected. Now Better Call Saul is all but over. Fans want a Mike spin-off, just like how X-Men and Deadpool fans want to see Colossus return. They are the beaming ray of hope in their respective franchises. Jane Margolis, Rogue Jane and Rogue both have a troubled past, as Rogue is a runaway, and while Jane isn't exactly a runaway, she definitely has a strained relationship with her family, especially her father. They're both quiet and won't come out of their shells until they completely trust the people they're around. But that doesn't mean they need any help from anybody, and they can completely fend for themselves, even more than the characters who act like leaders. And in intense situations, they can actually be the commanding presence in the room. If Jane and Rogue's roles were switched, they'd both likely follow down the exact same path. Jack Welker, Magneto. It's almost ironic that Jack is Magneto's counterpart, as they're literally complete opposites in one respect. Magneto is a Holocaust survivor and Jack is a neo-Nazi, but that doesn't mean they aren't the same when it comes to almost every other element of their personalities. Jack has an immediate disrespect for anyone who isn't like him, and he doesn't even treat his peers as equals. Eric is just the same, and like Jack, he's willing to kill anyone he previously did business with without giving it a second thought. Though they're both villains for different reasons, as Jack simply wants personal gain and Eric genuinely believes what he's doing is right, they both act on instinct and are quick to act on their intrusive thoughts. On top of that, both villains have a superiority complex and let a gang of villains who don't even know any better too. Hank Schrader, Wolverine Hank, Dean Norris, and Wolverine are almost interchangeable, as they're both hot-headed and aren't afraid to go rogue. They both have people they need to answer to, but when they don't get their way or if restrictions are put in place to keep them from doing what they want to do, they will absolutely throw the rule book away. And as it was seen when he thought Jesse was responsible for endangering Marie or when he found out Walter was Heisenberg all along, Hank turns into a feral animal, and if he lays his hands on anyone in this mindset, they'll be lucky to come out alive. Ironically, as Marvel Studios is looking for an actor to play Wolverine 2, Norris actually has a more comic book accurate physique to the character than Hugh Jackman.